Yeah, thank you so much for coming. We are very, very excited about this panel tonight. There are no four people who are more conversant with the most up-to-date aspects of Bradley Manning's case or the depth and complexity of the war logs and diplomatic cables that he released than our speakers tonight. So I'm very excited to introduce Chase Madar, who is the author of Passion of Bradley Manning, which is from OR Books over there on the back table. We'll be selling copies afterwards. And we have, we're lucky to have Ted Hearne, a composer, and Mark Doten, a librettist, who are composing an opera, is that the accurate word to use, about Manning, and have attended his Article 32 hearing in Fort Meade. And from Chicago, we have Kevin Gosztola, who is probably well known to a lot of people in this room as a blogger on The Dissenter on Firedog Lake, and has been to all of the Manning pretrial hearings and will continue to attend them. There are some starting Wednesday of this week, with the actual trial beginning in September. And just so you know, BookTV is filming this to be aired, so please be aware of the cameras, and if and when you want to ask a question during the question and answer, please come up to this microphone so that they'll get the audio of you for BookTV. BookTV is aired on C-SPAN 2. So with that, I'm going to give it to Chase, and then we're going to hear from Kevin, and then we're going to come back to New York for Ted and Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise Harris, and everyone else here at Brecht Forum. I'm thrilled to be on a panel here tonight with such a great crew of first-rate and truly necessary journalists, Kevin Gosztola on the TV monitor there, and then with the team of Mark Doten and Ted Hearne, who are giving the already operatic story of Bradley Manning and WikiLeaks the treatment it deserves, and I really look forward to seeing it. My name is Chase Madar. I'm an attorney and author of a new book, The Passion of Bradley Manning. And those of you who are here probably have some sense of who Bradley Manning is, but I'm going to tell you anyway. He is a 24-year-old U.S. Army private first class from the small town of Crescent, Oklahoma, and he is accused of being the WikiLeaks source inside the U.S. military, the guy who supplied WikiLeaks with the Afghan war logs, with the Iraq war logs, with the State Department cables, with the Guantanamo files, and with, most famously, the collateral murder video, so-called, that helicopter gunsight camera video that shows a U.S. Apache gunship opening fire on a crowd of mostly civilians in a Baghdad suburb in July of 2007. Now, much has been written about Bradley Manning's motives or alleged motives for his alleged leak. Why would he do such a thing? People have rushed to attribute all kinds of psychological motives, that he did this because he's gay, because he was thinking of transgender transition, because he had an unhappy childhood. In fact, his motive is much simpler than all of this, and it's in plain sight. I'm going to tell you a little story about what led him up to this alleged leak. Bradley Manning was working in Army intelligence in Iraq, and he was tasked with looking into the arrest by the Iraqi Federal Police of nonviolent protesters who had been handing out a pamphlet that looked into corruption in the Iraqi government. Now, Bradley Manning was concerned about the arrest of such nonviolent protesters because the Iraqi authorities had maintained their longstanding habit of torturing prisoners and detainees even after the U.S. invasion and occupation. This is very well documented in the Iraq war logs, as a matter of fact. And Manning brought his concerns up the chain of command about what might happen to these nonviolent protesters who had been detained by the Iraqi Federal Police. And his superior allegedly told him just to shut up and get back to work, rounding up more prisoners for the Iraqi authorities. And this brought about a change of heart, a change of mind in the young private who had believed that Operation Iraqi Freedom had something to do with Iraqi freedom. And his response was to start allegedly leaking things. And He's very plain about his motives in the instant message chat logs that have been published, but not yet verified with the guy who would later turn him in to the authorities. Bradley Manning says in these chat logs, "I want people to see the truth, regardless of who they are, because without information, you cannot make informed decisions as a public." Manning also said that he hoped the leaks would lead to, quote, "hopefully worldwide discussion, debates, and reforms." Now, I fail to see what is so objectionable about this spirit and what is so objectionable about the alleged acts that were motivated by this. And I wrote a book about this. Now, I am not a reader or a writer of one-note protest books. And in one of the things that attracted me to the subject was that there's so much that is counterintuitive and surprising about it. Counterintuitive and surprising even to a left-of-center audience. And I'm going to tell you very quickly about 3 counterintuitive phenomena that are part of WikiLeaks and the story of Bradley Manning. Now, if you've read about this story at all, you've probably read or you've heard that Bradley Manning and WikiLeaks are utopian idealists, that Manning was treated like an enemy combatant for his alleged deeds, and that the disclosures uncover war crimes or strong evidence of war crimes. These sounded all fairly non-controversial. I think all 3 of these assertions are false, and I'm going to tell you why very quickly. First, the assertion that Private First Class Manning and WikiLeaks are on an idealistic and utopian quest for total transparency. This is a meme that's gotten a lot of play. The New Yorker ran a profile of Julian Assange a couple of years ago with the subtitle, "The Quest for Total Transparency." And many American pundits and intellectuals have taken the bait and used this as an excuse to rail against the threat of total transparency, how this is crazy, how it's utopian. Utopian in our political discourse always being a synonym or a euphemism for idiotic or moronic. But are Bradley Manning and WikiLeaks really leading us down some slippery slope to something like total transparency? Is this really their goal? Have they even come close to achieving it? I want to give you the lay of the land on secrecy and transparency in this country, and I think that'll answer the question. Today, Washington classifies some 77 million documents a year. 77 million documents a year. We might ask ourselves, are we even close to something like total transparency if we are classifying 77 million documents a year? Declassification moves at a geological pace in our country. It was only last year that the National Security Agency finished declassifying documents from the War of 1812. That is a time lag of 2 centuries. So I have to ask, is it at all realistic or is it legit to fret or freak out about the slippery slope to total transparency? I really think not. Let me put it into further perspective. What Bradley Manning is alleged to have leaked, it's the biggest leak in U.S. history, it is still less than 1% of what Washington classifies every year. I'm going to repeat that. What Bradley Manning is alleged to have leaked is less than 1% of what Washington classifies in any given year. So we are really far away from total transparency or any kind of threat or too much transparency. Furthermore, not a single document that Manning is alleged to have leaked is ranked top secret, and only 6% of them are classified as secret. A great many of the leaks, like the helicopter video and more than half of the diplomatic cables, were not classified in any way whatsoever. Now, I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to see the leakage of these documents about U.S. statecraft as some kind of utopian idealistic act. I think it's much more accurate to label these as a very practical, realistic, problem-solving acts as a solution to a foreign policy that has been a disaster over the past 10 years, if
not longer. And our foreign policy has been a disaster in large part because of the extreme government secrecy that has choked off important